Дойче Думков, ты еще увидишь, как из-за твоей продажной глупости, Анна-Лена Бербок, Берлин будет гореть.
Надо как-то сделать так, чтобы американские солдаты начали гибнуть.
Да мы сотрем в порошок Варшаву и Вильнюс.
Почему мы признаем Францию в ее границах?
Как я хочу посмотреть, чтобы Урсулиха фон дер Ляля корчилась с куском беспилотника в глотке.
Когда на сегодняшний день мы говорим, что война будет безъядерной, мы, наверное, лукавим.
По количеству на душу населения, правда, Канада ее опережает, но Америка — это мировая держава победила.
Я сейчас требую спалить Берлин.
Welcome to another episode of Russian Hate Speech, where we expose the Kremlin's latest offensive lies against the West. In the program 60 Minutes special edition on the Russian state channel Russia 1, a narrative was spread that Europe is the sick man of global politics. Sergei Luzyanin, professor at MGIMO and the Higher School of Economics, said, "Today, Europe, I would say, is a sick man of global politics. This European-centered garden that someone spoke of is gradually turning before our eyes into this toxic European swamp." This statement embodies the Kremlin's ongoing attempt to dehumanize and discredit Europe, suggesting that it is no longer a significant player on the global stage, but instead something decayed and falling apart. It's part of the broader strategy to make the West seem weak, unstable, and irrelevant. On Evening with Vladimir Solovyov on April 27, 2025, host Vladimir Solovyov went even further, claiming that Europe is full of morally corrupt leaders, attacking the entire continent for its supposed sins.
They are the target in our sights, not mere counterparts. They are in the crosshairs. Every time, they think they can dictate their will here. They climb the pulpit and try to lecture us. The most bloodthirsty and vile manifestations of human anti-civilization are what we see now in Europe.
Solovyov's hateful rhetoric is designed to whip up anger, using deeply inflammatory language to paint the entire European continent as morally bankrupt and responsible for global conflict, justifying Russia's actions as a counter to these so-called crimes. In another episode of 60 Minutes special edition, Russian officials also spread the narrative that lasting peace in Europe would only come after Ukraine is denazified and the so-called fascist regime of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is dismantled. Yuri Afonin, First Deputy Chairman of the Committee for Security and Anti-Corruption of the State Duma of Russia, said, "We have completed the International Anti-Fascist Forum, and it clearly states that stable peace in Europe, supported by representatives of 100 countries, is possible only with the denazification of Ukraine and dismantling Zelensky fascist regime. This is something that no one in the West talks about. Why don't they talk about it? Because they themselves created it." This claim is another part of the Kremlin's narrative that the West is responsible for the rise of fascism in Ukraine and that only Russia can bring peace to Europe by overthrowing Ukraine's government. It's a transparent excuse for further interference in Ukraine's sovereignty. Later, on Evening with Vladimir Solovyov and Andriy Klintsevich, military expert, head of the Center for the Study of Military and Political Conflicts, hinted at dangerous escalation, directly blaming British intelligence for terrorist activities in Russia.
When we say that behind every terrorist attack are British intelligence services, it means that British blood should be shed. They must understand that they will personally answer for these actions. That's how it works. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. All explosives have certain types of markings. Each time the batch is made with a change to understand where it came from, it is an international agreement to understand where the terrorists took it from. I'm sure our special services have long understood the source of origin, right down to the factory and the year of production. And if this factory is flying to the air, just like the headquarters of the intelligence agencies that authorized the terrorist attacks, they should not be surprised.
By accusing the UK of orchestrating terror attacks, the Kremlin seeks to justify violent retaliation and promote the idea of using force against perceived Western aggressors. This rhetoric is part of a broader campaign to stoke fear and hatred of the West. In a chilling statement on Belarusian television, historian Andrei Fursov suggested that any conflict between Russia and NATO without the involvement of the US would lead to the destruction of Europe.
If the Americans suddenly leave NATO, A confrontation between Russia and NATO will mean the destruction of Europe, because in a nuclear confrontation between Russia and Europe without America, Europe will be finished. I think in a week it will be over. They understand this very well.
This statement reflects Russia's threatening nuclear rhetoric and aims to instill fear in European citizens about the risks of escalating tensions with Russia. It also plays on the Kremlin's desire to make Europe seem defenseless and at the mercy of Russian power. On April 27, 2025, Solovyov also broadcasted disturbing rhetoric, calling for the physical destruction of Ukrainian intelligence and military officials. Evgeny Buzhinsky, a retired lieutenant general and head of the Applied Political Military Research Center at Moscow State University, stated,
I want to start with what you said, that the Kiev regime repeatedly proves its terrorist nature. Here's the latest murder. In this case, the killing of the deputy head of the General Staff's main operation directorate. Why can't we respond adequately? Why don't we eliminate the most odious figures of the Kiev regime, including the heads of military intelligence and the SBU? We know how to do this. Our special services have experience. It's not that we can't. It's that we should destroy the leadership of the Nazi regime, both the military and political figures.
This marks a disturbing escalation of calls for violence, with high-ranking Russian officials openly discussing targeted killings of Ukrainian officials. This rhetoric is used to stoke further hatred and division, framing the war as a moral crusade against Nazism in Ukraine. The Kremlin's strategy of nuclear intimidation seeks to keep Europe in a constant state of fear, implying that any further confrontation would lead to the end of Europe as we know it. Thank you for joining us today. Stay tuned for the next episode of Russian Hate Speech as we continue exposing the Kremlin's war on reality.